My fiancée canceled our wedding 48 hours before the ceremony after her coworker confessed his feelings. She said, "I need to see where this goes." I said, "Go find out." I canceled everything, took a job across the country, and disappeared. 18 months later, she found my new number, but I wasn't the one who answered. 48 hours before I was supposed to get married, I came home and found my fiancée sitting at our kitchen table with her engagement ring sitting next to her phone. That was pretty much the moment I knew something was wrong. Mallory wasn't crying. She wasn't angry either. She was just sitting there with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug she clearly hadn't touched. I put my keys down. "What happened?" She looked at me for a few seconds. "Can you sit down?" Nobody has ever said those words because they're about to tell you something good. I pulled out the chair across from her. Mallory and I had been together 6 years, engaged for 14 months. Our wedding was Saturday. My parents were already in town. Her aunt had flown in that morning. We had boxes of decorations stacked in our spare bedroom, and I'd spent my lunch break confirming the final head count with the caterer. So naturally, Mallory chose that particular Wednesday evening to tell me about Wesley. Wesley worked with her. I'd met him maybe 5 or 6 times. Nice enough guy, or at least I thought so. Mallory stared at her mug. "Wesley told me something last night." "What?" "He has feelings for me." I remember sitting there waiting for the rest. I genuinely thought she was about to tell me she'd reported him or asked to switch departments or something. Instead she said, "He said he's been in love with me for months." Okay. She looked irritated by that response. "Colin, I'm trying to tell you something." "I know. Your coworker likes you." "No, it's more complicated than that." That was when I looked at the ring again. It was sitting between us, and suddenly the conversation felt very different. I asked, "Why isn't your ring on?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she rubbed her forehead. "I need to see where this goes." I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "Where what goes?" "With Wesley." There was probably a 5-second silence. Maybe longer. I don't remember. I just stared at her because there wasn't much else to do. "Our wedding is Saturday." "I know. You want to cancel our wedding because Wesley told you he likes you?" "I'm not saying cancel." I actually laughed at that. Not because anything was funny. "What are you saying? Then, postpone it." "For how long?" "I don't know. A week?" "I don't know. A month?" "Colin, stop." "No. I'm trying to understand the plan here." She leaned back. "There doesn't have to be a plan for everything." That sentence summed up a lot of our relationship. Looking back, Mallory didn't like plans because she'd never really needed them. When she quit her previous job without another one lined up, I covered the difference for 4 months. When her car needed almost $3,000 of work, I paid it. When she forgot the electric bill, I handled it. Rent, insurance, vacations, emergencies. Somehow those things had gradually become my department. Her dad used to joke about it. "Mallory gets to be spontaneous because Colin handles reality." Everybody laughed, including me. At the time, I thought it meant they trusted me. Sitting there across from her, I started wondering if it actually meant something else. Mallory reached toward me. "I love you." I pulled my hand back before she touched it. She stopped. "But?" she sighed. "I don't know if there is a but." There obviously is. Wesley made me realize I have questions. About me? About us. 2 days before our wedding. Great timing. I looked at her ring again. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Are you choosing him?" "No." "Are you choosing me?" She went quiet. That was my answer. Mallory started explaining again. She said she didn't want to marry me while wondering whether she'd ignored something important. She said Wesley understood parts of her personality that maybe I'd stopped noticing. Then came my favorite part. She said postponing was actually the honest thing to do. Apparently I was supposed to appreciate her integrity. "So what happens now?" I asked. "I stay with Jocelyn for a little while." "And Wesley?" "I don't know." "You're going to see him?" "I need space to figure this out." There it was again. Space, time, questions, everything except an actual answer. Then I realized she genuinely expected me to wait. That bothered me more than Wesley. 6 years together, and Mallory was so confident I'd still be available afterward that she could put our wedding on hold and test drive another relationship. I nodded. "Okay." She looked surprised. "Okay? Go find out." Her shoulders actually relaxed. That's the part I'll probably remember forever. She looked relieved, like we'd just reached some mature agreement. "I knew you'd understand." I almost corrected her. Instead I stood up. Mallory grabbed her overnight bag from the bedroom. Apparently she'd packed before I even got home, which told me this conversation had been decided long before I sat down. At the door, she turned around. "Please don't do anything while you're angry." "I won't. I mean it. Colin, I heard you." She left. I stood there listening to her car pull away. Then I walked back into the kitchen. Her ring was still on the table. Beside it was the binder we'd been using for the wedding. I sat down, opened my laptop, and pulled up the spreadsheet I'd built months earlier. Venue, caterer, photographer, DJ, hotel, transportation, honeymoon. I started checking the contracts one by one. Almost everything was under my name. Then I opened the venue agreement. I scrolled down to the cancellation section and read it twice. If the reservation was canceled before midnight Wednesday, most of the deposit was refundable. I checked the clock. 10:48 p.m. I had 73 minutes. I clicked the number listed for the venue. It rang 4 times before someone answered. Willow Creek Events. Hi, sorry for calling this late. I have a wedding booked for Saturday under Colin Mercer. There was some typing. Oh. Yes, Colin and Mallory? That's us. What can I help you with? I need to cancel it. Silence. Not dramatic silence. More like the poor woman was trying to figure out whether she'd heard me correctly. Cancel the wedding? Yes. This Saturday? Yes. She paused again. Okay. Can I ask if you're sure? I looked at Mallory's ring sitting beside my laptop. Very. She explained the cancellation policy anyway. Because I was canceling before midnight, I'd get most of the venue deposit back. There was a non-refundable administrative fee and another small charge I'd agreed to in the contract. Fine, I wasn't trying to recover every penny through some miracle loophole. I just wasn't paying thousands of dollars for a wedding that no longer existed. She emailed the cancellation form. I signed it electronically. 10:56. Next, the photographer didn't answer, so I emailed him and left a voicemail with the time clearly stated. Same with the DJ. The transportation company had a 24-hour customer service line. That one took maybe 6 minutes. Full refund. The hotel was easier than I expected. I booked several rooms under a group reservation, but individual guests were responsible for their own rooms. I only had to cancel the suite Mallory and I were supposed to use. The woman on the phone asked whether I'd like to move the reservation to another date. No. All right, would you like a credit instead? No. Thank you. She processed the refund. I think it was around 11:20 when I got to the honeymoon. That one hurt a little. Not emotionally, financially. The resort had a cancellation penalty, but the airline tickets could be converted into travel credits in my name because I'd purchased them through my account. I took what I could recover and moved on. At 11:51, the photographer emailed back. He'd received my cancellation notice before the deadline and would process the refundable portion the following morning. 9 minutes to spare. I leaned back and looked at the spreadsheet. It was weird. A few hours earlier, those rows represented the biggest weekend of my life. Now they were just expenses I was closing out. I expected to feel worse. Maybe that sounds cold. I wasn't happy. I wasn't celebrating. I just had this strange sense that something had become very simple. Mallory wanted to find out what life looked like without me. Okay, that required actually being without me. So I kept going. I logged into my credit card account. Mallory had an authorized user card connected to mine. We'd done that years earlier because I had better credit and better rewards. I removed her. Then I separated the subscriptions that came out of my account. Streaming services, cloud storage, gym membership, a couple of stupid little monthly charges I'd forgotten existed. The phone plan couldn't be separated online, so I made a note to call in the morning. Then I checked our lease. That was the first thing I couldn't fix with 3 clicks. Both our names were on it, and we still had several months remaining. I emailed the property manager explaining that our circumstances had changed and asked what options were available if one tenant moved out. I wasn't going to disappear and leave Mallory responsible for something I'd legally agreed to, but I also wasn't renewing anything. That distinction mattered to me. Around 1 a.m., I closed the laptop. Then I noticed an email near the bottom of my inbox. The subject line was, "Following up, Richmond position." I stared at it for a second. I'd forgotten it was still there. 4 months earlier, a restaurant supply distributor in Richmond had tried recruiting me for a regional purchasing position. Better title, better salary, relocation assistance. I'd gone through 3 interviews. They offered me the job. Mallory said no, not let's discuss it. No, her family was here. Her job was here. Her friends were here. She didn't want to start over somewhere else. So I turned it down. At the time, I told myself that's what you did when you were building a life with somebody. Now I wasn't building that life anymore. I didn't sleep much. At 8:12 the next morning, I called the recruiter. "Colin? Yeah, sorry, I know this is unexpected." He laughed. "I'll say, I wanted to ask if you filled that position." There was a pause. "We haven't. I'd like to reconsider." That conversation lasted about 20 minutes. By the end of it, he said he'd speak with the director and call me back. He called at 10:30. The offer still stood. Same salary, same relocation package. They wanted me there in 2 weeks if possible. I accepted. After that, I called the phone company, handled the remaining accounts, and started making a list of what belonged to me in the apartment. Mallory still hadn't contacted me. Apparently she was busy figuring things out. Around noon, my phone finally rang. Not Mallory, the venue. I almost didn't answer because I'd already received the cancellation confirmation. "Hello, Colin? Just wanted to let you know everything has been processed." We also contacted Mallory because her number was listed as the secondary contact. I closed my eyes. Of course it was. "Okay, thanks." 30 seconds after I hung up, my phone started ringing again. This time it was Mallory. I let it ring twice before answering. "What did you do?" "No, hello." "Nothing. I canceled the wedding." "You canceled everything?" "Yes." Her voice went up. "Colin, what the hell? You weren't supposed to actually cancel everything." I sat down on the edge of the couch. "What exactly did you think was happening? I told you I needed time. And I gave you time." "No, you blew everything up overnight." I looked around the apartment. "Mallory, You took off your engagement ring and told me you needed to explore something with another man. I didn't say we were over. That one genuinely surprised me. So what did you think I was supposed to do? Wait until I figured this out. There it was. I rubbed my forehead. How long? I don't know. That's the point. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Okay. She went quiet. Then her voice softened. Okay, what? You have all the time you want. Colin, I accepted the Richmond job this morning. Nothing. For several seconds, I could hear people talking somewhere behind her. Then she finally said, very quietly, what? They want me there in 2 weeks. You already accepted? Yes. Another pause. I looked at the list I'd made on the coffee table. Then I corrected myself. Actually, I'm leaving in 12 days. And this time, Mallory had absolutely nothing to say. She eventually said, you can't be serious. I am. Colin, you decided to move across the country overnight? No, I decided 4 months ago. I just turned the job down for you. That isn't fair. I almost asked which part. Instead I said, I've got some things to handle. We'll talk later. Wait. I hung up. Maybe that sounds harsh, but I wasn't interested in spending the afternoon explaining why canceling our wedding had consequences. About 20 minutes later, Jocelyn called. I ignored it. Then Mallory's mother called. Ignored that too. By 2 o'clock, I had 9 missed calls and enough texts to make it look like somebody had died. Mallory finally sent, I'm coming home. We need to talk face to face. Fine. She showed up around 4 with Jocelyn. That annoyed me immediately. Not because I disliked Jocelyn. We'd always gotten along. But apparently our private relationship discussion now required Mallory's older sister as backup. They walked in and stopped when they saw the boxes. I'd already packed most of my books, clothes I didn't need for work, kitchen stuff I'd bought before we moved in together, and some things from the spare bedroom. Mallory stared at them. You've already started packing? I have 12 days. Jocelyn folded her arms. This is insane. Good to see you too. I'm serious. Colin, you're throwing away 6 years because Mallory asked for a little time. I looked at Mallory. Is that what you told her? Mallory dropped her purse on the counter. I told her what happened. Did you mention Wesley? Jocelyn jumped in. Yes, I know about Wesley. And you still came here thinking I'm the unreasonable one? Nobody said you're unreasonable. You literally walked in and called this insane. That bought me a few seconds of silence. Mallory sat on the couch. I haven't done anything with him. I stayed standing. Okay, that's important. Why? She looked genuinely confused. Because I haven't cheated on you. I didn't say you did. Then why are you acting like I did? There was the problem. Mallory seemed to think there had to be some technical violation before I was allowed to leave. Like relationships had terms and conditions and she'd carefully remained inside the acceptable boundary. You canceled our wedding to see whether you'd rather be with him. I postponed it. Saturday isn't happening. Mallory, I know that now because you canceled everything. No, it wasn't happening when you took off your ring. Jocelyn tried interrupting. I held up a hand. No, seriously, I want to hear this. Mallory looked exhausted. I don't know what you want me to say. The truth would be useful. I told you the truth. Then we're done. She stared at me. Just like that. The anger disappeared. Done? Yes. Her eyes moved toward Jocelyn and then back to me. I thought we were taking time. You were. And you? I wasn't. That probably sounded colder than I intended. But it was true. She wanted an open-ended period where she could decide which man she preferred while I remained exactly where she'd left me. I wasn't agreeing to that. About an hour later, her parents arrived. Apparently Jocelyn had called them. At that point, I considered charging admission. Beth walked straight into the apartment asking why I was doing this so quickly. Raymond was calmer. He sat at the kitchen table and asked if everybody could just slow down. Saturday's already canceled, I said. We know, Beth replied. Half the family knows too. There it was. The real emergency, not the relationship. The guest list. What are we supposed to tell people? She asked. The truth? Mallory glared at me. Beth lowered her voice. She was overwhelmed. She told me she wants to explore a relationship with Wesley. I said feelings. Mallory snapped. Fine, explore feelings. Raymond rubbed his face. Colin, nobody is saying what she did was smart. Mallory looked at him. Dad, I'm trying to help. Then he turned back to me. You two have 6 years together. Don't make permanent decisions while everybody's upset. I already made mine. Beth stared at the boxes. You're really leaving? Yes. And the apartment? I contacted the property manager. I'll pay whatever portion I'm legally responsible for until they approve a change. I'm not screwing anyone over. Mallory finally looked relieved. Then I added, but after that, the rent is yours. Her expression changed. What? The lease isn't being renewed by me. Beth frowned. You pay most of the rent. I know. Mallory stood up. So now you're trying to punish me financially? No. I'm stopping paying for a life I'm no longer part of. That started another argument. Car insurance came up. The phone plan. Groceries. Even the streaming accounts. I hadn't realized how many things had quietly become my responsibility until everyone started listing them for me. Eventually Raymond told everyone to stop. He looked around the apartment and said, maybe we should leave Colin alone. For once, I agreed with him. Mallory left with them. The next 12 days went faster than I expected. The property manager agreed to remove me after I paid my share through the end of the following month. Mallory chose to stay. I packed, worked, arranged the move. Mallory barely came home. On my final evening, she texted that she'd be staying somewhere else. She didn't say where. I didn't ask. The next morning, I loaded the last box into my car, put my key on the kitchen counter, and left. About 4 hours into the drive, my phone buzzed. Mallory, you took the coffee machine? I laughed so hard I had to shake my head. Yes, the coffee machine I'd bought 3 years earlier was apparently the breaking point. I didn't answer. The following morning, while I was stopped at a hotel halfway to Richmond, I woke up to a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I played it while brushing my teeth. Hey, Colin, it's Wesley. I stopped. His voice sounded nothing like the confident guy I remembered. I think you and I need to talk about Mallory. And suddenly I was very curious what had happened in the 24 hours since I'd left. I finished brushing my teeth before I called him back. Mostly because I wasn't going to stand there with toothpaste in my mouth while Wesley explained why the woman he'd apparently been in love with was suddenly causing him problems. He answered on the second ring. Colin? Yeah, thanks for calling. You said we need to talk about Mallory. There was a pause. I think there's been some misunderstanding. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed. Between who? All of us, I guess. That was already impressive. I'd been gone for less than a day and somehow I'd been included in their misunderstanding. What do you want, Wesley? He exhaled. Mallory's really upset. Okay. She feels like you're trying to punish her. Did she tell you why the wedding was cancelled? She told me. Then I'm not sure what we're discussing. Another pause. Then he said, I just think you're making things harder than they need to be. That actually made me laugh. You confessed your feelings to a woman 2 days before her wedding. I didn't tell her to cancel it. No, you just told the bride you were in love with her. I was being honest. Apparently honesty was having a great week. Mallory had used the same defense. I don't care what you two do, I said. That's the part you're not understanding. Then why cancel all the accounts? Because they're mine. The apartment? I'm paying what I'm legally required to pay. She can't afford that place by herself. I looked at the phone. There it was. Not even 2 days. Then she should move. You know it's not that simple. It actually is. Wesley went quiet. I could hear a television somewhere behind him. Then he lowered his voice. Look, man, I'm not trying to fight with you. Good. I just think you should give her some time to get things sorted out. With what? Everything. You mean money? He didn't answer. That answered it. I leaned back against the headboard. Wesley, you wanted a relationship with Mallory. I told her how I felt. Right. And she chose to explore that instead of marrying me. It's not exactly. So explore it. Silence. I'm serious. I'm not stopping you. You're being kind of an asshole about this. Probably. That seemed to throw him off. I wasn't interested in convincing him I was the good guy. Anything else? He hesitated. She's expecting you to come back. Well, she shouldn't. Then I hung up. I drove the rest of the way to Richmond that afternoon. The company had arranged temporary housing for my first month, basically a furnished 1-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from the office. Nothing fancy. The couch was uncomfortable, the kitchen had exactly one decent pan, and somebody had apparently decided 4 decorative pillows were more useful than a proper desk chair. Still, when I closed the door that first night, the place was quiet. I liked that. For the next few weeks, I mostly worked. New job, new systems, new people. I didn't have much time to sit around thinking about Mallory, which was probably good. She emailed me twice. I didn't answer. Beth texted asking whether I'd reconsider helping with Mallory's car insurance until she got back on her feet. I replied, no. She sent 3 paragraphs after that. I didn't respond. Raymond called a few days later. His approach was calmer. I'm not asking you to take her back. Good. I just think everything happened very quickly. It did. She wasn't prepared for all these expenses. That irritated me more than I expected. Neither was I when she canceled our wedding. Raymond sighed. I know. No, I don't think you do. He didn't argue. To his credit, Raymond was probably the only person in Mallory's family who was beginning to understand that I wasn't coming back. About 6 weeks later, Jocelyn sent me a message. Not angry this time. Just, you were right about Wesley. I stared at it for a while. I didn't ask what happened. Honestly, I didn't want to get dragged back into it. Then she sent another message anyway. They're fighting constantly. Apparently Mallory had expected the relationship to become serious immediately. Wesley had expected something considerably more casual. He liked taking her out. He liked spending weekends together. He was less enthusiastic when Mallory started talking about moving in. And he definitely wasn't interested in helping with her bills. That part almost made me feel bad for her. Almost. 3 months after I left, I was eating lunch at my desk when Jocelyn texted again. Wesley ended it. I put my phone face down. 10 minutes later, an email appeared. Mallory, subject line, can we please talk? I deleted it. Another arrived that evening. Then one the next morning. I deleted those too. By Friday, she'd apparently figured out I wasn't responding. Her 4th email had a different subject. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I didn't open that one either. I blocked her address. Then I blocked the 2nd email address she tried the following week. After that, things went quiet. For about 4 days. Sunday afternoon, my dad called. We talked for maybe 5 minutes about normal stuff before his tone changed. "Oh, by the way, somebody called the house yesterday looking for you." I already knew. "Mallory?" "No." That got my attention. "Who?" "I don't remember the name. Some woman. Said she was an old friend of yours." I sat up. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing. I figured if she needed your number, she'd already have it." "Good." Then Dad added, "She asked where you're living now." I stopped moving. Mallory knew better than to call my parents directly, which meant she'd started getting other people to do it for her. And for the first time since leaving, I realized she wasn't just trying to apologize anymore. She was actively trying to find me. I told Dad not to give my information to anyone. He sounded mildly offended. "I wasn't planning to." "I know. I'm just saying if anybody else calls, they don't get your number. Or my address." "Colin, I understand." "Fair enough." I got off the phone and sat there thinking about it longer than I probably should have. Mallory had my email, or at least she had several email addresses she could use to contact me. So if this was really about apologizing, she already had a way. Finding my phone number and address was different. I didn't like it. That evening, I changed the privacy settings on basically everything I could think of. LinkedIn, social media, even one old account I hadn't used in years. Then I called my mother and gave her the same warning I'd given Dad. Her response was immediate. "Mallory called me last week." I sat up. "What?" "I didn't tell you because I thought you'd be annoyed." "I am annoyed." "Yes. That's why I didn't tell you." Hard to argue with that logic. "What did she want?" Mom hesitated. "She asked how you were doing. And whether you were seeing anyone." I rubbed my forehead. "What did you say?" "That it wasn't my business." "Good answer." She cried a little. Mom added. "Of course she did. She said she'd made a terrible mistake and you wouldn't let her explain." "I let her explain before I left." "I know." Mom wasn't defending her. She actually sounded uncomfortable. Then she told me Mallory had asked whether I was still in Richmond. Mom hadn't confirmed anything. After that, I stopped treating the calls like random attempts to reconnect. I changed my number. It was inconvenient for about 2 days. Work contacts needed updating. My bank wanted verification. I forgot one delivery account and had to deal with that later. Still worth it. Things finally became quiet again. And honestly, the quiet lasted long enough that I stopped expecting it to end. Work was going well. The new position was more demanding than my old one. But I liked that. There wasn't much room to sit around thinking about what my life was supposed to look like. I found an apartment after the temporary housing ended. Then, about 7 months after moving, I met Autumn. A coworker named Pete invited a few of us to a trivia night at a bar near his neighborhood. Autumn was friends with Pete's wife. We ended up on the same team. Our first conversation was an argument about whether Pluto should count as a planet for a trivia question. Very romantic. I lost. We talked afterward. Then again the following week. Nothing happened quickly. That was probably why I liked it. There wasn't some instant connection where I suddenly forgot the previous 6 years of my life. I was cautious. Probably too cautious. A few months in, Autumn finally asked why I sometimes seemed like I was waiting for something to go wrong. So I told her, not every detail, just enough. Engagement. Wedding canceled 2 days before. Coworker. Moving. Autumn listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "That must have changed how you trust people." That was it. No speech about how Mallory was terrible. No promise that she'd never hurt me. Just an observation. And she was right. Things kept moving from there. Slowly, normally. At work, I got promoted again. I eventually bought a small townhouse because I was tired of renting and had enough saved for a decent down payment. Autumn moved in several months later. I proposed about 5 months after that. Nothing elaborate. We were at home. She was wearing sweatpants. I'd planned something more impressive, but the ring had been sitting in my desk for 3 weeks and I got tired of pretending I wasn't nervous every time she went near the drawer. She said yes. We got married at a small venue outside Richmond. Family, close friends, no giant production, no spreadsheet with 37 tabs. I checked. 6 weeks after the wedding, I was in the kitchen making breakfast when my phone started ringing. Technically, it was Autumn's phone. Mine was charging in the bedroom, and I'd used hers earlier to call a contractor about some work we were having done. She looked at the screen. Number I don't know. Probably spam. She answered anyway. "Hello?" I kept cooking. Then Autumn said, "Yes, he's here." I turned around. She was looking at me. "Who is it?" I asked. Autumn held up one finger. The voice on the other end was loud enough that I could hear a woman talking, but not clearly enough to make out the words. Autumn frowned. Then she said, "Sorry, who is this?" Another pause. The woman apparently asked something because Autumn's eyebrows went up. She looked at me again. Then she answered, "I'm his wife." Silence. Not from Autumn. From whoever was calling. Autumn waited. "Hello?" The call disconnected. She lowered the phone. That was weird. Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. "What did she ask?" Autumn put the phone on the counter. "She asked if you were there." Then she asked who I was. I already had a pretty good idea. "Did she give you her name?" "No." Autumn thought for a second. Actually, before she hung up, she said something. "What?" She said, "His wife?" Like she couldn't believe it. I turned off the stove. After 18 months, Mallory had finally found my new number. She just hadn't expected my wife to answer it. Autumn looked at me. You know who that was? Pretty sure. Mallory? I nodded. I'd told Autumn enough about my previous relationship that she knew the name. I hadn't exactly given her a 6-hour documentary about it, but the important parts had come up over time. She picked her phone back up. How would she have my number? She doesn't. Autumn frowned. Then I realized what had happened. A few weeks earlier, I'd given the contractor Autumn's number because I'd been in meetings all day and she was handling the appointment. Mallory must have gotten it from somewhere connected to the house. That bothered me more than the call itself. Autumn asked, "Do you want to call her back?" "No, you don't want to know what she wanted? If it was important, she'll find another way to make sure I know." Autumn gave me a look. "What? You sound extremely confident about that." "I have experience." She laughed. Then we went back to breakfast. That was basically it. No argument. No interrogation. Autumn didn't suddenly become suspicious because an ex-fiancé had called. Honestly, that might have been the strangest part for me. A couple years earlier, something like that would have ruined my entire weekend. I would have analyzed why Mallory called, how she got the number, what she wanted, whether I should respond. Now I mostly wanted to keep my eggs from burning. Mallory didn't call again. At least not that weekend. Monday came. I went to work. Tuesday was completely normal. Wednesday morning, our receptionist called me around 11. "Colin, there's a package down here for you." "From who? Raymond Hayes?" I stopped typing. "You sure? That's what it says." I hadn't spoken to Raymond in over a year. "Okay, I'll come get it." The package was sitting behind the front desk when I got downstairs. Medium-sized cardboard box. Nothing unusual about it. My name and office address were handwritten across the front. That meant somebody had found where I worked too. Great. I took it upstairs and left it beside my desk for probably 20 minutes. Then curiosity won. Inside was a smaller padded envelope, a folded letter, and another envelope that felt like it contained paperwork. I opened the padded one first. Mallory's engagement ring fell onto my desk. I just stared at it. Same ring. Same tiny scratch near the bottom of the band from when she'd dropped it on our bathroom tile years earlier. I hadn't seen it since the night she left it on the kitchen table. I'd assumed she kept it. Apparently she had. I put it aside and opened Raymond's letter. His handwriting was terrible, so it took me a minute. "Colin, I'm sorry to contact you at work. I didn't know another reliable way to reach you. There are some things I should have told you a long time ago." I stopped there. That wasn't what I expected. I kept reading. Raymond said things had become difficult at home after Mallory moved back in. He didn't give details. Mostly he apologized. Not for Mallory, for himself. He wrote that he'd allowed me to carry responsibilities that should never have been mine. Then he mentioned money. That immediately got my attention. I opened the second envelope. There were copies of old documents inside. The first page had my signature at the bottom. Raymond's too. I recognized it immediately. 4 years before the wedding, Raymond's flooring business had gotten into trouble. He'd lost a large commercial contract after already buying materials and hiring additional workers. He needed cash quickly. Banks weren't interested because of some existing debt. I had savings, so I loaned him $38,000. Yes, I know. Looking back, loaning that much money to your girlfriend's father sounds insane. At the time, though, Mallory and I were already talking seriously about marriage. Raymond had always treated me well, and we had an actual written repayment agreement. He made payments for about 18 months. Then business slowed again. Raymond asked if he could pause payments. I agreed. After that, life happened. Wedding planning started. Mallory and I combined more of our expenses. I stopped pushing Raymond because, in my mind, I was joining the family anyway. Stupid? Maybe. But that's what I thought at the time. I flipped through the pages. Payment history, original agreement, bank transfers. Then I found something newer. An acknowledgement of outstanding debt. Balance, $21,480. Signed by Raymond 3 days earlier. I leaned back. Why was he sending this now? I went back to his letter. The next paragraph answered part of that. Mallory found out about the loan last week. I read it again. That didn't make sense. As far as I knew, Mallory already knew. Raymond had told me years earlier that he'd explained everything to her. Apparently he hadn't. I kept reading. Neither had Beth. Neither had Jocelyn. Raymond had hidden the entire thing from them because he was embarrassed that his daughter's boyfriend had been the person who kept his business afloat. Worse, he'd apparently allowed his family to believe something very different. For years, Beth had told people Raymond helped me financially when Mallory and I were starting out. I actually laughed when I read that. Not because it was funny. It was just so ridiculous that laughing was easier. Then I reached the final paragraph. Raymond's tone changed. "I know you probably don't want anything to do with us. I don't blame you. But Mallory knows everything now, including where the money came from and what you did for this family." Underneath that was one last sentence. "That's why she's been trying so hard to find you." I stared at it. Then I noticed something written underneath in different handwriting. Mallory's, just 6 words. "Dad, tell him the rest too." I turned the page. There was another letter behind it. And the first line was, "Colin, Mallory finally found out where the money came from." I read the first line twice. Then I kept going. Raymond had written the second letter more like an explanation than an apology. Apparently Mallory had been living with her parents since about a month after Wesley ended things. At first, It was supposed to be temporary. Then temporary became several months. Money became a problem. Mallory was contributing what she could, but Beth was getting increasingly irritated about having another adult in the house. Raymond's business had slowed again too. Eventually they had some huge argument. Raymond didn't explain exactly how it started. Something about Mallory needing money for a car repair. Beth apparently made a comment about how none of this would have happened if I hadn't abandoned Mallory. That was when Raymond finally lost his patience. He told her to stop blaming me. Then he told them about the $38,000. I could picture the conversation pretty easily. According to Raymond, Beth initially didn't believe him. Mallory didn't either. So he pulled out the original loan agreement. My name, his name, bank records, everything. That's when Mallory learned I'd loaned her father enough money to keep his business operating 4 years earlier. And that wasn't even the part that surprised me most. Raymond admitted he'd lied about it. Not directly to me, to everyone else. For years, Beth apparently believed Raymond had helped me when Mallory and I first started building our life together. I'd always wondered where that story came from. At family gatherings, Beth occasionally made comments about how lucky I'd been to have Raymond's guidance. I never really challenged it because I assumed she meant advice. Apparently not. Raymond had been too embarrassed to admit that his daughter's boyfriend had bailed out his business. So when people made assumptions, he let them. Wonderful. I stopped reading for a minute. I wasn't furious. Mostly I was tired. It was strange realizing how much effort had gone into maintaining a version of me that made everyone else comfortable. Dependable Colin. Helpful Colin. Lucky to be there Colin. Meanwhile, I was quietly paying for half the machinery keeping everything running. I continued. After the truth came out, Mallory apparently started asking questions. A lot of them. How much had I paid? How much had Raymond repaid? Why hadn't she known? What else had I covered? That conversation eventually expanded beyond the loan. Raymond told her about times I'd helped with smaller things over the years. A payroll shortage once. A tax bill he'd been late paying. Nothing remotely close to $38,000. But enough that the pattern became obvious. Mallory hadn't known about most of it. Neither had Beth. Then Raymond wrote something that actually made me put the letter down. I think that's when Mallory understood how much of our family's stability came from you. I didn't particularly enjoy reading that. It didn't make me feel vindicated. If anything, it made the whole situation seem worse. They shouldn't have needed a spreadsheet of everything I'd done before deciding I mattered. I flipped to the documents again. The new acknowledgement confirmed Raymond still owed me $21,480. He wanted to resume payments. Fine, that part I could deal with. I emailed an attorney I'd used during the townhouse purchase and asked whether his office handled private debt agreements. He referred me to somebody who did. By the end of the week, Raymond and I had arranged everything through attorneys. Monthly payments. Automatic transfer. No meetings required. No reason for Mallory and me to see each other. That apparently wasn't what Mallory wanted. 2 days later, Raymond emailed me. Mallory asked me to send you something. I told her I would only do it once. After this, I'm staying out of it. Attached was a scanned handwritten letter. I almost deleted it. Instead, I opened it. Mallory didn't start with I miss you. I'll give her that. She started with, I lied to you about Wesley. I sat back. Then I read the rest. Wesley's confession hadn't come out of nowhere. For months before the wedding, Mallory had been talking to him about us, complaining about me, comparing us, telling him she sometimes wondered whether she'd settled down too early. Wesley eventually told her he had feelings for her, but by then, she'd already made it pretty obvious those feelings were welcome. So when she'd sat across from me 48 hours before our wedding and acted confused, she wasn't confused. She'd already been entertaining the possibility. She admitted she'd told Wesley she wasn't sure she'd actually marry me. That part bothered me more than I expected. Not because I wanted her back. Because for 18 months, some small part of me had wondered whether I'd reacted too quickly. That question disappeared completely. I kept reading. Mallory wrote that she understood now why I left. She apologized for expecting me to wait. Then came the sentence that mattered. I honestly believed you would. I stared at it. The next paragraph explained why. Apparently she'd talked about postponing the wedding with Jocelyn before she ever spoke to me. Jocelyn told her I'd be angry but would eventually calm down. Beth said essentially the same thing. Even Raymond, without knowing the full situation, apparently said, Colin isn't the type to throw away 6 years. They'd all reached the same conclusion. I was dependable, patient, stable. Therefore, I wasn't going anywhere. Mallory had taken that assumption into our kitchen with her. She hadn't thought she was risking me. She thought she was putting me on hold. I reached the final paragraph. Then I stopped, because Mallory had written one more thing. Something she'd never admitted before. There was another reason I was so sure you'd wait. Something I said to Wesley the night before I canceled the wedding. I moved to the next page. And after reading the first sentence, I finally understood just how little Mallory had thought losing me was even possible. The sentence was simple. I told Wesley you were the kind of man who would forgive me because you loved me more than you loved yourself. I sat there for a while after reading that. Not angry, Just thinking. That sentence explained more than the previous 7 pages combined. Mallory hadn't believed I'd wait because she trusted our relationship. She believed I'd wait because she thought I didn't have a limit. There was a difference. I kept reading. She wrote that Wesley had actually asked her what would happen if I walked away. Apparently she'd laughed. She told him I'd never do that. According to her, I'd spent 6 years proving it. Every time she'd needed help, I'd helped. Every time she'd changed plans, I'd adjusted. Every time her family needed something, I'd figured it out. Somewhere along the way, Mallory had started interpreting consistency as dependence. She thought I needed her enough to tolerate anything. That was probably the saddest part, because I had loved her a lot. She just never understood that loving somebody and accepting whatever they do to you aren't the same thing. The letter ended with Mallory asking for one conversation, not another relationship, not forgiveness, just 15 minutes. She included her number. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Then I went downstairs and made dinner. Autumn came home around 7. She noticed the envelope on the counter. More from Raymond? Mallory this time. Autumn took off her jacket. You okay? Yeah. What did she want? To talk. Autumn waited. I appreciated that about her. She rarely asked the second question before it answered the first. Are you going to? No. That was it. I emailed Raymond the following morning. I received the letter. Please don't send anything else from Mallory. I wish her well, but there's nothing left for us to discuss. He responded about an hour later. Understood. I'm sorry, Colin, for more than just the money. I believed him. That didn't mean we needed a relationship. The repayment agreement started the following month. Raymond never missed one. Sometimes I'd see the deposit appear and remember that kitchen table. Other months I barely noticed. Mallory didn't contact me again. Neither did Jocelyn. Beth certainly didn't. About 6 months later, Raymond called unexpectedly. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. Hey, Colin. He sounded older somehow. We made awkward small talk for maybe 30 seconds. Then he said, I wanted to tell you I'm selling the business. I didn't know what to say to that. Okay, I've got a buyer. When it closes, I'm paying you whatever's left. You don't have to accelerate it. I know. Another pause. Then Raymond said something I wasn't expecting. I think we all got used to you fixing things. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Yeah, I didn't see it while it was happening. Neither did I. That was probably the most honest conversation we'd ever had. He apologized again. I didn't tell him everything was fine. It wasn't, but I wasn't interested in punishing him forever either. We said goodbye. The sale closed about 2 months later. One Friday afternoon, $14,260 hit my account. Final payment. I opened the document my attorney had sent me. Remaining balance, $0. I stared at that number longer than necessary. 4 years earlier, I'd given Raymond $38,000 because I thought I was helping my future family. For a long time, I'd assumed I'd never see all of it again. Now every dollar I was legally owed had been returned. No screaming, no public humiliation, no revenge campaign, just a debt paid. I closed the banking app. Autumn was sitting across from me eating toast and scrolling through something on her phone. She looked up. Everything okay? Yeah. I put my phone down. It's done. She knew what I meant. Good. Then she stole half my toast. Apparently marriage remained financially dangerous in other ways. Life moved on. I heard bits and pieces about Mallory through people back home. She eventually moved out of her parents' house and got her own apartment. Wesley had disappeared from the picture completely. I don't know whether she's dating somebody now. I genuinely hope she's doing okay. That probably isn't the ending some people want. Maybe I'm supposed to say I wanted her miserable. I didn't. I wanted her irrelevant to my life. There's a difference. The funny thing is, Mallory had canceled our wedding because she thought she needed to find out whether Wesley could give her something I couldn't. She did find out. Wesley gave her about 3 months. I'd given her 6 years. But even that wasn't really the lesson I took from it. For years, everyone around Mallory had described me using the same words. Reliable, patient, stable, safe. They said those things like they were compliments. Then they built their expectations around them. Colin will handle it. Colin will pay. Colin will understand. Colin will wait. Until eventually Mallory believed there was literally nothing she could do that would make Colin leave. She found the line 48 hours before our wedding. And once she crossed it, I didn't need revenge. I just stopped holding everything together. Turns out that was enough. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.